It takes all kind of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters. And welcome back to Hawkeye's House of Horrors. And today I'm going to bring to you my next film from 1980, horror film, that being Motel Hell. And this one was actually released on October the 18th, 1980, just in time for Halloween back in 1980. And it was directed by Kevin Connor. Now, he had done quite a few TV movies, but one of his that I have seen was The House Where Evil Dwells. Personally, uh, I didn't really like it. It was the whole story, didn't get sold on it, but it was well directed, and I liked the cinematography to that film. But he made that after this film here. But up to this point, he had made the Land That Time Forgot, I believe, in the '70s. So he was making horror films and science fiction films back in the '70s. Now, this film was written by the Yaffe brothers, so that being Robert, who was one of the writers for the film. I believe it was released in 1977, Demon Seed, as well as Stephen Charles Yaffe, who was also an associate producer for Demon Seed and also for a late 1980s vampire flick that I think is pretty good, and that is Near Dark. Also uncredited Tim Tuckrello and Frank Cotolo, um, who I found when reading this was actually a personal friend of the legendary Wolfman Jack, who stars in this film, has a role. So I think perhaps he had written that role for him, or the dialogue was penned by him for his character. He plays Preacher Billy, I think. Interesting little character. He's got a small role in this as well. So now the original screenplay was written back in 1977, but selling it proved to be a little bit more difficult for the Yaffe brothers, who were the ones who originally had written the screenplay. And according to Stephen Charles, studios at the time either hated it or thought it was the strangest thing that they had ever read. At one point, I found out Toby Hooper was actually on board to direct this film, and I must say this is right up his alley. This he could have turned out a good film. Hooper could have, although there is quite a bit of a similarity between this and his 1976 Eaten Alive, where it's about a guy who runs a motel but feeds people to his gator. Um, it would have worked here though, if Hooper did do it, but uh, I'm I must say I'm glad he didn't, because it was a little bit too similar to his Eaten Alive, I believe. Um, as well as Universal was actually going to make this film, but in the end, it was actually United Artists who released this film and got on board into the horror film craze that was going on at the time, and wanted to cash in on that. Now, this film had a $3 million budget back in 1980. And yeah, United Artists did make some money on this and made back 6.3 million. In today's money, that would be just under 23.5 million. So it was a success, and it made money at the box office. But Kevin Connor was hired to direct the film after, I believe it was the Yaffe brothers, because they were impressed by his From Beyond the Grave, which came out in 1974. I don't think I've seen that film, but it was his first film and it was a horror film. So that led to him getting a chance to direct this one. And since its release, this film definitely has picked up a bit of a cult status. There's a cult following for this film. And um, personally, I definitely think it's a good mix of horror, comedy, and weirdness. There's definitely some weirdness going on. and it may throw some people off where they like it, and then when the weirdness stuff comes up, they may not uh, really fall in love with the film. Personally, I think it's good that the weirdness is there because it brings some of its originality to the film, as well as it's able to um, distance itself from films like Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think are very influential to this film here. So I'll run through the story and some of the main actors in the film, and definitely things that I pick out that I really enjoyed about the film. So as I said, it's definitely a different twist on Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in my opinion. But we do see siblings. That's Farmer Vincent, played by Rory Calhoun, and Ida, played by Nancy Parsons, who I will always remember her playing Ballbricker in the Canadian classic Porky's, and was also in Porky's 2 and Porky's Revenge. But anyways, these two siblings, they run a motel called Motel Hello. Wouldn't you guess it though? The O on the end of hello keeps flickering in and out, thus giving us the name Motel Hell. And it definitely is a Motel Hell for most of the people that you see in this film spend the night there. Not a good choice to go there for the night. Now, if you don't know who Rory Calhoun is, um, let me tell you, the first thing that comes to your mind is not horror. He was a Western star or a Western actor back in the 50s and 60s. It was in quite a few different Westerns. Um, so he's totally playing against the grain here, sort of. He's really just playing his folksy downcountry boy uh, role, playing it straight. Um, and in the end, though, this is a horror film, so he's playing the bad guy. He's playing the guy that you don't want to spend a night at his motel. That is for certain. But in the end, definitely he and Parsons, they definitely play the best performances in the film are from those two actors, and they alone carry this film for me and make this film worth watching. And it's definitely a treat to see them on film. Now, to go through the story a little bit more, there's a nice intro as we see Farmer Vincent sitting outside the Motel Hello, smoking his pipe, sitting on a rocking chair, I believe. But then he's waiting, and then he's going to go out and find his next victim uh, at night. Now, he catches a couple on a motorbike, but he decides not to kill or get rid of the girl. So it's a man and a woman. Her name is Terry, played by Nina Axelrod, and she's okay in the role. Um, she does okay. Um, Now, both Farmer Vincent and Ida bring her back to health and really welcome her really into their family. She becomes part of the family too. And then she meets their other brother as well, who's the sheriff. More on him in a little bit. Um, but we are definitely dipped into some weirdness as Farmer Vincent and Ida, we find out, are killing people to make their amazing, delicious, lip smacking smoked meats that they sell or give away. It looks like right at the counter of their motel. Uh, we also see this weird garden where they dig holes and people are literally buried into them up to their necks. Their vocal cords are then destroyed and then fed some like weird mixture to feed them. Um, and then after a while, they're then killed and taken out of the ground to then be smoked. And we generally see this whole process. Um, Definitely like the end of it, like then coming out of the ground. There's a funny scene, a funny group of characters. We don't really get to know them very much, which is kind of a downfall. I would have liked to know these guys a little bit more, but there's this band coming down the highway in a van. They're called Ivan and the Terribles. They're like this metal band. Interestingly, the drummer of the band is John Ratzenberger, or later uh, was known as Cliff Clavin from Cheers. This was a couple years before he started on that show, but he's in this film. But it's through those band members we see the end of them being killed and taken out of the holes, and the process of them being smoked and turned into meats. Yay! Woo! But yeah, it's definitely there where that sort of weirdness where it may you might go one of two ways. And I definitely am on the first path. You may become even more interested in the story at that point because this is interesting and something I haven't seen in another film before. So as I said, that's where some of the originality comes in, is through that weirdness. Or you may turn it off and say, that just went a little strange, a little too weird for me. Now, there is a bit of love triangle going on as well, and it's really kind of the main plot point to the film, beyond them killing people to make their smoked meats. Because this is where the final sibling, Bruce, who actually isn't aware of how his brother, Vincent, makes his smoked meats. He's not aware of the family secret. But boy, does he like to pound that stuff. As Vincent even says, he's the biggest cannibal in the county. Um, but the other sibling, he's the sheriff. His name's Bruce, played here by Paul Link. Like Nina Axelrod, he's okay in the role. He's a little, I don't know. Neither of them are bad, but neither of them are amazing or as good as Calhoun and Parsons are in their roles. And it's not their fault because their roles are like they are the villains and they're written really well uh, to become villains. Now, more about Bruce though, he's really like through the most of the film, he's just a horny guy. Like he's a cop, but you don't see him do any cop work. He's just sitting in his cruiser reading Hustler magazines. But he's just a horny guy. And when he's introduced to Terry near the beginning of the film, instantly you see that he would like to be with her. Um, just the look on his face, okay, you can tell right away. But the problem is, she would like to be with his brother, Farmer Vincent, um, who in the end actually lets her know he may actually divulge some information, get her in on the family secret, show her the ways of how to make this amazing smoked meats, how to do that. Now, I must say, this is just something to say. It doesn't really matter at all, but definitely when watching this film, I can tell Terry is definitely into older men because at the beginning of the film, she's with a man named Boris on the motorcycle. He's like 15 years older than her. And then, not a whole lot later, she is really falling for Farmer Vincent. And the last thing you can accuse him of being is young. Murdering smoked meats maker, sure, but not young, because he's got to be like 25, 30 years older than her. But anyways, it doesn't really matter, but um, definitely that's something with her character as well. Now, the intro to Ida You do see her at the beginning of the film. She's actually sleeping on the bed, but when she wakes up in the morning, there's a very funny scene. She's making breakfast and singing the theme song to the movie, which is You're Eating Out My Heart and Soul by Craig Nance. It's a hilarious scene, and but also kind of spooky as well. But then Ida actually becomes extremely jealous of Terry. Once she is sort of, or once she shows an interest in her brother, she becomes jealous of her at that point and actually tries to murder her. Now, after Farmer Vincent is ready to get married, his number one objective hasn't changed. It is still his smoked meats, which is hilarious, which adds even more layering to his character as well. Because then they drug Terry. This is like the day before they're going to get married, so that he can keep making the smoked meats, so that you then see them killing the band members and working on making their next batch of meat. Um, so yeah, I really like that added layer to the character. May add a bit of ruthlessness, or definitely not a whitening to his character. He's still a dark guy, even when he's looks like he's going to marry this beautiful young woman. Um, that's doesn't change who he is and what he's going to do. Now, the music to the film, it's a big plus. It's by Lance Rubin. I really liked it, especially this last time watching it. Just finished watching it earlier today, earlier this morning. Seen it, I think that was my fifth time seeing that film. But I really like the main theme with the piano. Um, it it's spooky. Yeah, it's almost, you could almost say, kind of lonely too. Um, but it's really good music, not overdone in any which way, and it it's a big plus to the film. Now, there's another couple that show up in the film, and they are a blast, or they're not in the film long. None of these people are when you stay at Motel Hell, but they're a couple, but they're like out looking for the hot spots to engage in some weird sex going on. That couple, they're played by Elaine Joyce and Dick Curtis. They're funny. Uh, it's actually really funny where at the end of the scene they think Farmer Vincent and Ida are going to join them in this sexcapade going on, but they're there to get them to tie them up and take them and bury them in the holes and turn them into smoked meats. But while this is all going on, this couple is like so cooperative and allowing them to tie them up without fighting or anything like that. So it's a nice twist. It's quite a funny scene. Now, a couple scenes that have jumped out to me in watching this film at the near the end of this film, and continue to stay with me, and I really like those scenes. The one in particular is where Ida is attacked by all the people that have escaped from the garden. They've escaped from that. Now they're after them, and Ida's attacked by all of these people. It's almost like a zombie scene to me. They almost act like zombies, but the whole picture of the film is awash with red from the neon sign uh, saying Motel Hell or Motel Hello at the front of the motel. Fills the scene with that color, and it works really well with that color. I really like that scene. And of course, to me, the best scene, the most memorable scene, is when Farmer Vincent and Bruce fight off at the end of the film, and each of them has got a chainsaw. So it's like a chainsaw battle. It's pretty cool, and I don't think by that point that had ever happened in a film that I believe two guys fighting each with a chainsaw. But to add the weirdness in, Farmer Vincent has a pig's head on. Okay, it actually adds another layer to the scene. It's definitely got that weird vibe going, and that there's a shot of that actually on the front of a Fangoria magazine back in 1980, showing Rory Calhoun with his pig's head and holding on to a chainsaw. So I really like that movie. It's a really good one, and I hope you've seen it and enjoy it. But if you do or you don't, you could tell me down in the comments what you liked about the movie or what you didn't like about the movie. I'm definitely not saying it's a perfect movie. There really aren't many of those, but I definitely think this one's definitely worth a watch, and it's one I keep revisiting every 5 years or so. I watch it again. So, anyways, that was fun. Can't wait to bring you my next film. And remember, everyone out there, stay scared.